Hello, this is Mark for Ableton Daily, and today I'm going to show you how to create some laser chirping effects with the analog instrument inside Ableton Live. If you don't have the analog instrument, it can be purchased separately from the Ableton website. Over the course of the next few days, I will be posting another video showing you how to create the sound with the operator instrument. So here's what it sounds like. To make the sound a little bit more interesting, you can add some other effect plugins to the track, such as a filter delay. This sound can add interesting effects to almost all kinds of music. And for this video, I've created a 4-bar deep house loop, so you can sort of get an inspiration on how this sound can be used. Okay, let's go ahead and begin this tutorial. Okay, let's go ahead and begin. First, start off with a MIDI track, and then go over to the live devices and expand the instruments folder and drag in an instrument rack into the effects chain. And go ahead and expand it so we can see our macros here. Next, come up and just drag in the analog instrument inside the MIDI effects Dropbox right here. So the basis of this sound is really pretty simple. There really is no secret. It mostly relies on a downward sloped pitched envelope, and then you adjust the timing of that downward slope to determine how long you want these laser sounds to be. And so you would shorten the timing to make them a little bit more chirpy sounding, and it all depends on what your needs are. So let's first go into oscillator number 1. And the first thing I'm going to do is change the shape to a sine wave. Next, you'll need to adjust the initial part of this pitched envelope, and so you'll want to change this to 100%. So just go ahead and click on here and enter in 100. Okay, so for the timing of this envelope, this is totally up to you. But what we're going to really do though is we're going to map the timing of the envelopes for oscillator number 1 and oscillator number 2, and we're going to map those to macro number 1 over here. That way we can adjust one knob and change several parameters within analog. So how cool is that? we're going to map the timing, but we're also going to map the decay time for both of these amplifiers. Go into amp number 1, and I'm going to change the slopes to linear. And then I'm going to go down here and turn on oscillator number 2, and let's go ahead and match the same initial envelope point that we have on oscillator number 1, which is really easy. It's just 100%. So I'll click on oscillator number 2 again and change the pitch envelope initial to 100. There we go. Okay, the oscillator number 2's got a little bit harder sound to it because we're using a sawtooth. But what we're really using oscillator number 2 for is to give the sound a little bit more bottom end. We can do that easily by changing the octave here. I can lower it down a couple octaves. Let's go ahead and turn on amp number 2 for this oscillator 2 section. And let's change the slope to a linear slope. Okay, yeah, it's getting a little bit loud. So what I'm going to do is turn down the master volume for analog. Make sure I'm not peaking out there. And I think I'm going to turn down the octave even more. So I'll probably just take this down to a -3. Okay, so let's get back to the mapping because that's the most important part and really makes this useful. Just start off on over here on the instrument rack, the map mode button. Go ahead and turn this on, and I'm going to activate the oscillator number 1 section right here. So go ahead and click on that, and then I'm going to click on the timing for this pitched envelope, and then I will click on map for macro 1. And then I will click on oscillator number 2. Go ahead and activate this section here. Click on time for the pitch envelope, and then click on map right here for macro number 1. Then over on amp number 1, click on the decay, and then click on map for macro 1, and do the same for amp number 2. So right here, activate amp number 2, click on the decay, and then click on map for macro number 1. Go ahead and click out of map mode. What I'll do is just slowly increase the macro here. So I'm just pressing the keys on my controller. As I listen to the sound back, I adjust the macro knob and just select how long I want this sound to be. Here's something else you can do to just give it a little bit more bottom end. On oscillator number 2, go ahead and activate this section here. And if you look right over here, you can actually increase the sub mode of this sound or of this oscillator. And right now it's currently defaulted at 0, so I can just play with the sound as I adjust this. And you can barely hear it, but that's going to give it a little bit more bottom end. Let's do the same for oscillator number 1. I'll go ahead and activate that. And for the sub here, let's go ahead and increase the level. And make sure that you're watching your output levels too, because you can sort of lose track and really be peaking out the meters. So. Okay, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and adjust this macro one more time. Okay, to make this a little bit cooler, what you can do is add a plugin to this effects chain, such as a filter delay. And I'll just go over and just minimize this instruments folder and open up the audio effects folder here. And I'll just come right down here to filter delay. I'll click and drag this into the Dropbox. And let's go ahead and try it out. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just record myself for 4 bars. I'll go ahead and turn on the metronome. And here we go. All right, there we go. I'll go ahead and trim it up a little bit. Okay, and then I'll just double click on that clip and just straighten out my recording a little bit. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and play that back. Now, as it's playing back, I can adjust the macro. I'm going to turn on loop here and try that one more time. You can also automate this macro knob if you want to, just like you can with anything else in Live. So as I touch this knob, it's automatically going to bring up the automation for this particular parameter. So I can double click on these, make some automation points. Okay. As it's playing back, you can adjust the octaves of these oscillators. And of course, you can play with the filter delay to adjust the timing. Just make sure that the sync button is turned on. It should be turned on by default. If you like to experiment a little bit like me, I like to increase the feedback of these delays, and it's sort of a really cool effect. Go ahead and play this back. Okay, so you pretty much get the idea. You can use this sound in many different ways and all different types of electronic music, just to add a little spice to your tracks. So there you have it. My name's Mark. This is Ableton Daily, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Take care.